Good morning. I'm glad to be back in the state of Connecticut. I'm glad to speak to a group of educators who deeply care about the children and families in the great state of Connecticut. I live in Michigan, but I'm a Georgia girl. Even though I'm a Georgia girl, I grew up listening to Elvis Presley. You ain't nothing but a hound dog, crying all the time. Many parents and teachers across this country feel that way sometimes. Many teachers think that they are teaching like a dog, trying to the best of their ability to reach all of the parents that they're working with and all of the children. Many times teachers feel all shook up. Okay, now why isn't this not working? That clicker is getting on my nerves. Just click for me. There he is back there. There it is. We're going to do a little Elvis this morning.
Well, blessing my soul, what's wrong with me? She's preaching like a man on a full street. My friends say I'm acting a while as a fool. I'm in love.
Even though James Brown wants teachers to feel good, many teachers do not feel good. Many parents do not feel good. I would like for you to participate in a call and response activity with me. When I ask a question, I want you to say, been there, done that. You got it? Let's get started. Okay, I'm trying to figure out. Okay, spaghetti dinners. Ice cream socials. Donuts for dads. Muffins for moms. You're not saying that real loud. Now, why is this not changing? I don't know about this clicker. Let me see here. Okay, bake sales. For all of these activities, I know you invited all families, right? In the time that I have this morning, I will share with you 3 stories which highlight the theme, all means all. Teach and reach everybody's child in my neighborhood. My mother was president of the PTA throughout my whole elementary school experience. She was the kind of mama that showed up at everything. You wanted her to stay home. Even to the point that she chaperoned the 7th grade dance, the 8th grade dance, even the 10th grade party. Stay home, mama. Mr. Dent and my mother were childhood friends, and we lived right across the street from Mr. Dent and his family. Mom and Daddy have passed away, but Mr. Dent, 94 years young, is still living. A few years ago, I honored Mr. Dent with the Crystal Apple Award from Michigan State University. What's wrong with this clicker? Oh, there it is. I went to school with my 1st grade teacher, Mrs. Taylor, in her 1957 Studebaker. If that 1957 Studebaker drove up into your yard, you were in trouble. And of course, I would say to the kids, you want to get a whooping. And they usually did. And it got fixed the next day. Teachers were active members in my community, as well as positive and powerful role models. Teachers also transcended the boundaries of their profession by visiting their students' homes, churches, and many of them taught Sunday school at the churches where their students attended. You even saw your teacher at the A&P store every Saturday morning. Whatever you did, your mama knew about it. Some people would say those are the good old days. We need to get those days back. Let's hope this works. Why is this thing jumping? Okay, I'm from Dougherty County, the county seat of Albany, Georgia. I was born and raised in Albany. In his classic book, The Soul of Black Folk, renowned scholar Dr. W.E.B. Du Bois portrayed Dougherty County as a place where vast ignorance festered untouched. This is a picture of Mr. George Dawson. He was on the Oprah Winfrey Show, by the way, who learned to read at 98 years of age. One of the images I saw in my community and church were African-American adults like Mr. Dawson, who were illiterate but highly respected. As a child growing up in Southwest Georgia, I thought I could teach and reach everybody's child in my neighborhood, including adults. All of my young life, I constantly heard all families should read to their children. All families should work with their child's teacher. My mama took it to heart, and she told everybody, you should work with your child's teacher. So to me, as a young child, all meant all. This is me. When I was in second grade, I was strongly reprimanded for correcting the reading miscues of my Sunday school teacher. I was told by my mother and my grandmother that I had been very disrespectful, and I needed to understand the importance of respecting my elders. As a result, I quickly recognized that if I was going to become a teacher, I needed to focus on children and not adults. At 7 years old, I turn it down just a little bit, I had an excellent plan of how I was going to become a teacher. My daddy owned a barber shop that was in my backyard, which gave me an excellent opportunity to practice my teaching on the boys when they came to get a haircut. The song Where the Boys Are truly characterized my house every Saturday morning. Every Saturday, Daddy cut hair from 7 a.m. to 9:30 p.m. I sold my parents on the idea that I could have a Saturday school from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. What really got me excited is that I would have a very captive audience. As the boys came through the gate that led to my backyard, I would greet them saying, "Hi, boys. Welcome to Edward's Barbershop and to Pat's Saturday School." The boys would often reply, I didn't come to your house to get a haircut. I didn't come to your house to go to any Saturday school. I came to get a haircut. With a twinkle in my eye, I would say, yes, you came to get a haircut, boys, but you also came to Pat's Saturday School. For those boys who were unwilling to attend my Saturday school, I would say, Daddy, this little boy told me he wasn't going to come to my school. And my daddy would say, son, can you read? No, sir. Well, I think it would be a great idea for you to come to my school. So, with a bright smile, I would say, I told you so. You have to come to my Sunday school. And if you don't come to my school, not only will I tell your daddy, I'm going to tell your mama, if you don't come to my school. Guess what I would do? I would quickly show the boys a permission slip. See, your mama signed this permission slip for you to attend my Saturday school. I showed all the boys very quickly the same permission slip. If you resist it, I had a backup plan. If you don't come to my school, my daddy is going to cut all of your hair off, and you're going to be a baldy. Many of the boys were missing teeth. And I would tell them it would be so bad to be bald-headed and snag-a-tooth. Well, I was an excellent recruiter, and I got my captive audience every Saturday morning. I read books, I taught the alphabet, how to count, I had a full curriculum. Some of the boys would say, you taught that last Saturday, and I would say, come on, boys. Our teachers say reinforcement is really good. I even kept reports on each of the boys who attended my school. Years later, many of the boys told me how helpful those Saturday classes were. Even though I was the youngest uncertified teacher in Dougherty County, I'm proud to say, at the tender age of 7, I experienced the power of teaching. You know that children can teach as well. Read to your child. Highly contentious. North Louisiana, Ruston. All of a sudden, at the end of student teaching, the students would always tell the faculty, there are two things you have not shown us how to do. You have not shown us how to work with families and children, and you have not done a good job showing us how to deal with discipline. So I volunteered to work at a Head Start center. Those are those children that Ann was talking about on the other side of the track. I went out and met with a group of kindergarten, first grade teachers. And let me say this to you. Teachers talk about parents and parents talk about teachers really badly. So I have to tell you this. I'm in a very privileged situation. I teach all graduate students and seniors. And by the time a child has got to be a senior, all the party goers have flunked out. So I have a perfect situation. But many of my teachers are not going into perfect situations. So I work with the families at the Head Start Center. And what I discovered is that teachers want all parents to read to their children. But read to your child is a very simple teacher directive, but it's a very complex and integral task for parents that don't know what teachers mean. Teachers are trained to be teachers. Parents are not trained to be parents. And so, in this particular community, what I discovered was this. In a book chapter that I wrote, Supporting Low AICS Mothers' Attempts to Provide Scaffolding for Book Reading, what I pointed out is that we need to shift from telling to showing. It's easy to tell someone something, but show me. Can you imagine going on a hiking trip up a mountain and no one's there to guide you? You need guiding. And in that particular community, there was a lot of tension between parents and teachers because teachers said, well, I told them what to do. And in my role as president of the International Reading Association, I've had the opportunity to go to 49 states. And what I found is that teachers in all 49 states tell parents the same thing. Read to your child. Be a good literate model. Take them to the library. You all know what I'm talking about. Okay, so guess what I did? I moved down to South Louisiana. Most of you, when you go to Louisiana, you go down to New Orleans, right? Donaldsonville, Louisiana. 40 miles from Baton Rouge, 50 miles from New Orleans. Right on the Mississippi River, Sunshine Bridge. I wrote about that little study, and in Louisiana in the mid-'80s, they had something called SPUR, Special Plan for Upgrading Reading. We've been talking about this a long time, this whole division between parents and teachers. I didn't want to go to Donaldsonville, but my associate dean's wife was the SPUR technical assistant. She said, you're going to Donaldsonville. I didn't want to go, but if you got any good sense and your associate dean told you to go somewhere, you better ask how soon you want me to go. I go to Donaldsonville. Donaldsonville has 726 children. 80% of them are low-income black children. 20% of them are low-income white children. No one is getting along. I go down there. The African-American parents thought I was going to be white because I was coming from LSU. And I told them I was. I was just pretending to be black. That illiteracy is odorless, is colorless. It will get anybody who has not done what they're supposed to do. They were all giggling. That's what you're giggling about. Met the white parents. Guess what they told me? They said the teachers didn't like them because they were poor. And I said, In 1929, in our great nation, we had the Great Depression. America didn't fold up and die because we had poor people. This is the only country that you can be born with absolutely, unequivocally nothing, and you can gain something. So earlier, you were talking about me going to the bar. I found out, I created 2 programs, Parents as Partners in Reading and Talking Their Way to Literacy, a program to help non-reading parents. But let me tell you who really helped me. I had a bar owner. He was calling the local media, Channel 2 News out of Baton Rouge. He was also calling, because let me tell you this, you can have a perfect program. And how many of you have had 13 donuts? 600 donuts and 13 parents. And you want to know what's happening. When home and school on a stress situation, you have to figure out ways to engage home and school. So Ms. Shaftos were sending out all kind of flyers, and the flyers were going in the garbage can. So you know what I did? I met with the bar owner on a Wednesday afternoon at 3 o'clock It was a rocking good time. Those of you who go to football games, you know, the kids be rocking. And all kids come in school, they know something. They just didn't know school-based literacy. When everything is said and done, you have to know school-based literacy. I know people have complained about that, but you have to know school-based literacy. And the people that complain about that, they know school-based literacy. So I go in there and found out that all the parents were at the bar on Wednesday afternoons at 3 o'clock. So I went down there. I did get a 16-year-old to dress me up. I got some new boots. I got me a cowboy hat. Had on me some bad jeans. I go down there. I said, "Are you all having a good time?" They go, "Now you have to respond." "Yes." And I said, okay, I started doing hotel, motel, Holiday Inn. And all the parents were watching. I'm thinking, this is very interesting. Their kids can't read, but they're having a great time. And I said, yet and still, they're not coming to school. So Ray Jacobs told the parents, if you don't come to the book reading program, I'm not going to serve you any more drinks in my bar. So I had a bunch of parents coming to the program. If you're dealing with non-mainstream parents, you need to figure out non-mainstream ways of engaging them. Had a bus driver, Miss Woods. Miss Woods had 9 college-educated boys from Southern University. Miss Woods drove the bus. She said some choice words to the parents. "Get your butts up on this bus." Miss Woods got us 95% of our parents the first week. She said, "I'm aiming for 100. So Miss Woods got all the parents to come. You see the group of ladies, we work with the missionary groups at church to talk about the importance of literacy. Because literacy is not just an important part of school, it's an important tool of faith. We work with the Ministry Alliance. I work with the Catholic priest, Father Hogan, because South Louisiana is heavily Catholic. Father Hogan told the parents, if you don't come to that book reading program, I'm not going to confirm your children. Because he has seen a sharp decline in catechism classes. So he said, you come in. And then I had a town meeting. I'm originally from Georgia, and Jimmy Carter believed in town meetings. There was an ism problem in that community. Black parents and the teachers didn't like them because they were black. Well, you can lose weight, gain weight, change your hair color. You cannot change your ethnicity. So we're not going to work on that. So I have to let you know this. At the time, I was an assistant professor. And if you don't publish anything, you will certainly get a pink slip that says you're no longer welcome to the family. So I said, listen, I like you, but I don't love you here. So I have to make sure this program works. And by the way, I only had $500. I went to the town meeting. I had everybody raise their hands. Tell me, you know how people always talk about the elephant in the room? Had everybody tell me what color they were, and they did. And I said, at the end of the school year, you're going to be still that same color. But what we're going to do is work on literacy learning. And this ended up being a national model. If we were getting ready to go down to the Superdome, we wouldn't be talking about this. I said, what I want to communicate is that we want to have you value academics to the same level you value athletics, because those two things are important. And by the way, I sort of recruit for the Michigan State football team, and I was talking to them about literacy and comprehension, because you do have to understand that playbook. So what ended up happening, one person wrote me and said that Louisiana was the only state that he knew of that you could bring saints and sinners together around literacy learning. So what I'm saying is, when I say all, I mean all parents. I moved to Michigan. Here we go with our next story. Come back. No. Okay. Parents were involved prior to desegregation. I go up to Michigan. Guess what? At this particular school, Kinman Professional Development School, the teacher said to me, this school was built in 1952. First-time homeowners. Everybody got along. All the families were white. They had the same goals, same values. They attended the same churches. They socialized together. Home and school was on the same page. All meant all. It sort of reminded me of growing up when I was growing up. My mother said, listen, the only way you're going to be able to make it in this country is that you have to have an education. Education transcends across boundaries. But I want you to know, neither one of my parents went to college. It wasn't because they didn't want to. It's because they didn't have the opportunity. Mama got a job at Bob's Candy Kitchen. Daddy got a job at the cotton mill. My uncle, who was the only graduate in our family early on, he was the one that helped him get a job outside of those two jobs. So my mother says I was lucky. You might not be as lucky. So guess what? As I was listening to the parents and the teachers talk, I was hearing a different kind of story. That school was built in 1952. It's okay to have deja vu. You know, people say the good old days. We don't live in a Leave It to Beaver era anymore. When I went to that school in 1990, it was not the same school, but teachers were trying to communicate and work with families in the same ways. So I thought, it's like, been there, done that. I said, it's not going to work. Oh, they would be so mad. We had this party. Would you have a wedding for 500 people and not have them RSVP to see who's coming? You might have 600 dinners and no people. So guess what? I go in that school. It's built in 1952, 1990. It was a transient and renters community. Families came in August, left in November. They might come back in February, and then they mess up your testing in April. I said, okay, so what you all going to do about this? They didn't know. They were so frustrated. But they wanted me to do exactly what I did in Donaldsonville, Louisiana. I said, I'm a researcher. I can't do that. That's how I got hired here at Michigan State. Like if you won at one school and you move somewhere else, you better win at that school. So I come in there and I said, teachers, what is it that you want families to do? They didn't know. Well, I can tell you this. In our teacher preparation programs, we focus a lot on subject matter knowledge. Because when I first came to Rallying Call at Michigan State, my dean was teaching for conceptual understanding. I don't think you can teach for conceptual understanding unless you conceptually understand something about the people that you're teaching. Now, wouldn't you think that would be true? So they didn't understand their people. And so you have to understand who you're talking to. I said, you all are lamenting over a group of people that don't exist in your building. So we need to do things differently. So they are looking at me. So I said, one of the things we're going to do is we're going to learn to respect the multiple literacies of the families represented in our school. They didn't know what that was. Can you imagine going to a doctor and they treat you because you look like you might have something? One of my colleagues' husband was the head of the residency program. And I asked him if I could go and see what doctors do. If you think about it, you might have 2 senior doctors and they're working with a group of wannabe doctors. In a school, you have teachers who've been teaching for 30 plus years and teachers who've been working for less than a year. We need to work together to have a shared vision of what it is we want. We don't want the kindergarten teachers doing something and no one else is doing something because all of you share the same children. So I created something called Parent Stories. Doctors collect family histories. Lawyers collect depositions. As teachers, we don't collect too much of nothing. I'm going to talk about that in my session. And so, but yet and still, you're making critical decisions about other people's children, and you don't know the other people that you're making the decisions about. That's what we need to do. So we had these stories, and like if you think about it, I have 6 boy cousins, and they are all lawyers. And lawyers collect these depositions, and when a lawyer collects a deposition, you know why they're collecting it. They're collecting it to see if there's anything there, and they're collecting to see if you're lying. And by the way, when you go to a doctor and he asks you why is your cholesterol so high, and if it's 286 and you tell him, oh, gee, doctor, I haven't had any fried foods or no milk products, they know you're lying, okay? They know you are. Now, as teachers, we know kids come in early, they come in emergent, and they come in fluid, and that's based on behaviors. And so I said, we're going to get to know the families we're working with. We're going to also look at family capability, responsibility, and willingness to be involved in schools. Because so many times, what we think parents ought to be able to do, they don't feel as if they do that. Families differ in their perceptions and conceptions about the schooling process. And I came up with this whole term called differentiated parent involvement and parentally appropriate. What's appropriate for A might not be appropriate for B. But we treat parents as if they're all the same. And parents are not all the same. And even within a family, children are not all the same. So we worked on those two concepts, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that in my session. And then, like I said, we need to look. I did a little survey, and everything that teachers thought parents ought to be capable of doing, parents didn't necessarily think that they should be capable of doing those things or felt willing or responsible. So we had to work on that particular dynamic. Gathering this information gave us some insight on the kinds of things we wanted families to do. Now, let me tell you this. Testing is never going to go away, just as sure as I'm standing up on this stage. The government is not going to fund us on testimonials. Sometimes we do really well with a small group of kids. That's good. But you won't get any money on a testimonial. So guess what? I created parent-informed literacy groups. How many of you have open houses? Well, you have open house. You have the donuts, the popcorn, and all of that. Well, you know what? We changed that whole thing at this particular professional development school. I live in a car company state, right? And you want all the parents to come. So when Ann was talking about unions, teachers don't want to come and stay after school because you have to pay them. So guess what I figured out? We can figure out anything because we're very smart as Americans. We're very smart people. So I found out where all the parents worked, went to all of their employers, and asked them if we could have a plan for the whole year. Let me tell you something else you should do. Parent involvement should be planned in August for the entire year. Think about it. Those of you who have hockey kids, soccer kids, pee-wee football kids, the coach gives you the schedule for the entire year. Your whole life is planned in. But parent involvement is an imposition. You can be a good first grade parent, but you're not a good third grade parent or fourth grade parent. So what we decided to do is to focus on grade level parent involvement initiatives. And I had teachers look at their test data to look to see what parts fell apart, what kids were not doing well on. Don't you target that? Think about a football coach. If you didn't block last week, he's going to show you how to block this week. Now, you know Michigan State has just moved up to number 2. Ohio State played really badly, so we're focusing on what they didn't do right, so we can make sure our players do it right. Think about it. It's the same thing. You know what the scenario is, so you need to work on those things. So the teachers were all thinking. They're all thinking about curriculum. School is only 6.5 hours. Families have their kids 17 and a half hours. What are they doing? That's strategic time. You need to get some of that time. We teach that when kids go to Yale or the other fine universities you have in the state of Connecticut, you're not going to get through college if you don't focus. Does that make sense? Well, you're not going to have parent involvement. You're going to have high rhetoric, low practice, and you're going to be pissed off because you're not going to get what you need to get. So if you want something, you have to plan for that. Does that make sense? So we had parent-informed literacy groups around each grade level. We met with the parents in groups. The teachers met with the parents in groups of 6. And we selected the parents based on who the kid was sitting beside in class. So we talked to the parents about who we were as teachers and what kinds of things we wanted to have with them. We did a handshake. So therefore, parents felt more committed to doing what we asked them to do than if we just had a big party where we fluffed up. I mean, how many times you all go into a meeting and you're talking to someone, you don't know what the person just said. Like, I don't know what, every year I get my taxes done. I just want to make sure I don't get audited. But I don't know all what that person just said. I want them to take care of me. But in this particular situation, we wanted parents to really understand what we meant. So we created parent-informed literacy groups around each grade level. And this is what we did. Kindergarten, the teachers said the kids were coming to school that had poor oral language skills. Guess what we did? We sent on tape recorders. When parents could, we made sure that everybody had the same topic. So if we were talking about this is me, everybody talked about this is me. So we tried to tie it to the curriculum and involve parents in meaningful ways that would make sense to them. Sent on tape recorders, had the parents tape their conversations, because the teachers had to wanted the parents to be more topic-centered, because a lot of the kids were all over the place. You ask them a question, and some adults didn't learn that because they go all over the place. So they wanted to be focused. So we would videotape the actual presentations in the classrooms. We had all the parents all meant all. We made sure that we talked to all of their employers, and so therefore we could have parents come during the day. And they could engage with us, and nobody had to stay after school. We worked that out. I mean, if you're the CEO of a plant, you can let people come in. If they couldn't come to the school, I went to them, the teachers, and I went to them. First grade, we focused on emergent literacy. Parents have their own frozen memories of how reading and writing and listening and speaking was taught to them. And sometimes you are frustrated, thinking, well, they should know this. No, they don't, because they don't change curriculum. They got one plate. I used to talk about my mother having a big pocketbook, and guess what? I have a big pocketbook. We have our own frozen memories of how we think things should be done. Looking at the connections between reading and writing. A lot of parents didn't understand that. So we work in our parent employment literacy groups that we met bi-monthly for an hour. And parents were engaged with their children. Third grade, we focused on the writing process. And in fourth grade and fifth grade, we focused on content area reading instruction. All of the parents were involved. All of the parents had a clear insight of what they should be doing and why they should be doing it. At Kendon, in our move toward a personalized learning environment, we created a scope and sequence of parent involvement. We made transparent for the parents, for them to understand what was going on in school. I train PhD students. I can't say you should just write a dissertation. They have to be trained and coached in how to do that if you want them to be successful in what they do. What can we learn? Schools can't do it alone. Educators can't do it alone. And I should have put up there, parents can't do it alone. We need all three people working collaboratively together. What else have we learned? That teaching is a noble profession. I hope people go into teaching because they like children. Because if you don't, get out. Krista McCullough says when you teach, you touch the child. And I'm going to add, you also touch the parent. Parents know on day one whether this is going to be a good experience for their child or not. And let me say this to you. We touch the future. You remember that candy called Now or Later? You will either pay for something now or you will pay for it later. There's a close correlation between literacy and crime. We have a prison to pipeline. When kids don't do well in school, we pay a lot of money for them to function in other places, and we don't need to do that. Come on now. Difference is what we have in common. Does that make sense? Everybody's not going to look like you. Everybody's not going to think like you. But we want to have general consensus. And difference doesn't mean that something's wrong with you. It just means that I'm different. If everybody in the world was just alike, what kind of world would this be? So I tell people, look at yourself and see what's wrong with you. And then can you see that magnified 308 million times? That would not be good. There's one thing that former First Lady Eleanor Roosevelt said. We have to face the fact that either of us are going to, we have to face the fact that either all of us are going to die together or we're going to learn to live together. And if we're going to live together, we have to talk. And so many times we don't talk. Teachers talk, parents don't talk. We need to talk. Oh, I just skipped that. And of course, Ann has explained that. I like this by Henry Ford. Coming together is a beginning. All parents come together at the beginning of the school year. Keeping together is progress. So many times when parents come the first day, they don't come back no more. Working together is success. And what we want to do is make sure we have success. Because let me say this to you. If parents are not participating and not showing up, I'm going to use the phrase that people used to say when I was teaching. If all of your students flunk, that means you're an F teacher. Why are they an F? Because they flunk. That means you're not doing something right. So we want to make sure that everybody feels welcome. Another thing we have to think about, we have to create these networks with parents. I mean, in some of these groups, this might be one parent's first kindergarten child. This might be another parent's fifth kindergarten child. And you can learn from people talking and interfacing. We have to look at differentiated parent involvement. parentally appropriate. We have to, even though we're trying to invite all parents are not at the same level. I'm taking an over 50 girls yoga class. Now I ain't 20. And I'm not training for the Olympics. But I want to take some yoga, but I'm not going to be at the high level. And I don't mind starting low level. We have to keep in mind that we're communicating with all different kinds of families. Unwed teenage mothers. We got 2-parent homeless families. We shouldn't have them in this country, but we do. We got single-parent families, step families, working mothers. In 1950, 90% of the mothers in this country were stay-home mamas. Now we got parents who work. We got grandparents keeping their children. It's okay to keep them on the weekends, but I don't want to see you every day. I had my grandnieces at my house. One of them 12. I don't think I like middle school kids anymore. She was at my house, but I could send her home. Go home, girl. We're gay and lesbian families, 2-parent families. We have low literate families. We have culturally diverse families. When people say, I don't see color, that's a lie. I want you to see my color. Because with me comes a whole history. Extended, reconstituted, and blended families. Unemployed families. Incarcerated families. All means all. How do we include all of these families? We need to figure it out. Barriers. Families' disconnection to the school community. Communication differences. Lack of information about expectations and programs and resources. Family isolation. We got to work with all of our families. Establishing a welcoming community. Because let me tell you, if I go to the doctor and someone is not talking to me right, I don't want to talk to that person. Does that make sense? Even the way they take your blood pressure. You know, you grab my arm. I don't like that. Creating opportunities for collaboration. Becoming skilled in intercultural communication. This is something we need to work on. Increasing families' accessibility to information. Judy and Veronica, I'm almost done. Because I learned from church you have to speak loud enough to be heard, but sit soon enough to be appreciated. One Connecticut principal said it doesn't matter how many structured activities a school creates, parents must feel welcome, accepted, respected, and validated at their school and by their leaders. The atmosphere has to be important. We have to also look at safe, welcome, and valued in a particular school. Families have to feel that way. And I tell you something else we have to think about. We have to look at what people bring to them, what's already there, and the work people do together. And I think there's a lot there in school. What we have to do is figure out, if you don't feel a part of something, like if you join an organization, you want to know what your role can be. And if you don't see a role, after a while, you're not coming. You're not going to come. So we have cultural histories, the institutional culture, and school is an institution. We have the culture we create. And we need to create those places where families feel as if they can participate. We have multiple meaning. We have to think about multiple means of delivering information. We have to do consistent monitoring of the information flow. We have to know methods for families to talk with someone to address questions, because a lot of times parents have questions they want to ask. We need interpreters. We needed translated materials. We need multiple means of presenting information, print, audio, various ways. I won't read that one because I can talk about that later. We need to look at cultural reciprocity, not looking at what teachers ought to be doing, not looking at what parents ought to be doing, but look what we should be doing. I won't go over that slide either. But one of the things I want to end with is this. America's future walks through the doors of our schools every day. That is true. A country is no better than its citizens. We put man on the moon. If we can put man on the moon and we didn't know where we were going, with all the research that's available, that shows us where we should be going, don't you think that we can create places where families learn how to support their children? My mom and daddy, I grew up in the 1950s and 60s and 70s in Georgia. The teachers didn't have all this research. They just knew that you were supposed to help your child. And my mother was talking to people that were maids and janitors. All of these people didn't have a PhD. So whether you had a PhD, MD, or no D, you still had the same responsibility for helping your children. I'm reading a book now called Our Kids. It doesn't make a difference, but you need to support your children. When you go to the doctor doesn't ask you if you have a PhD, MD, or no D. They tell you what you're supposed to do, and you do it. So if we can put man on the moon, we should be able to figure out this parent involvement thing. We can do it. And guess what? Those who say it cannot be done should not interrupt the people doing it. So with that in mind, let's have a good day. Thank you.